It turns out that what is obvious is a subjective thing. What is obvious to one person might be ultra non obvious to another person. While this might seem like a meaningless truism, it actually explains a lot about innovation and adoption and why the rest of the crypto world is just noticing Cardano's innovations now after we've been screaming about them for years. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss Grayscale and the adoption of innovative ideas, 23 new fully saturated mystery stake pools, and who is probably behind them, some Djed news, and a new article on pipelining, which will hopefully finally explain that to you if you don't understand it up to this point, and I think that's probably a lot of people. If you like leaf-covered alligators, or if these videos are bringing you value each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. And also do check out how we've done better the last two epochs than those online calculators would have predicted. We've minted more blocks than they thought. Grayscale has launched something that they're calling their smart contract platform X Ethereum Fund, or the very simple acronym GSCP lowercase xe, if you want to go short with it. I love how they create the most boring generic sounding name ever, and then they create an even more ridiculous acronym for it. They could have just called it like Fund 5. No Ethereum Fund 5, or We Hate Ethereum Fund 5, something like that. The important thing about this news that you should be aware of is that apparently, I believe this is at inception, Cardano is the most heavily weighted asset, just barely ahead of Solana, but ahead of Solana, ahead of Avalanche, ahead of Polkadot, ahead of Polygon, ahead of Algorand, ahead of Stellar. They describe this fund by saying many investors allocated to ETH given its explosive growth over the past year. So now there is demand to get exposure across the rest of the smart contract platform sector. So they're saying if you are worried you are too heavy in ETH and you think ETH 2.0 might not go as well as you'd previously hoped, given the comments of longtime Ethereum core developer that we covered the other day, maybe you want to jump in this fund here, which has almost every other very well-known smart contract Gen 3 platform except for Luna. Notice the very prominent non-inclusion of Luna. Maybe Grayscale has a different opinion of Luna than Novogratz. It appears they differ on that for some reason. I wonder if this is the reason why we saw Novogratz doing that first OTC deal, not Novogratz personally, but Galaxy Digital doing that first OTC deal with Goldman Sachs. If I knew that one of my entity's favorite coins was going to be excluded very prominently from a Grayscale smart contract platform fund like this, I would probably try to do something big and splashy to make the news the day before, so that when this came out, people would be thinking about that and not the fact that my favorite coin was excluded from this. But I don't think that's the most notable thing here. It's very notable that an entity like Grayscale is suddenly giving Cardano its due worth. They all of a sudden have the same opinion as the Cardano ecosystem. It could be that this could change. It could be temporary. It could be that they change their mind and they increase the weighting of one of these other crypto assets beyond the allocation to Cardano. That could happen at any time. But it's very notable that Grayscale didn't always feel this way. There was a long time when Grayscale had I could have almost said crypto equally as a whole ecosystem, but Grayscale had a bunch of crypto assets involved in their various funds. There were a bunch, and Cardano was noticeably missing. All of a sudden now, Cardano is their most heavily weighted smart contract platform asset out of all of them. Why is that? Why all of a sudden do they agree with us? Because I mean, I think you can't help but assume that they agree with. I mean, they obviously. I think even the Cardano ecosystem would have said, "Yeah, Cardano should be the most heavily weighted asset in your fund." And it looks like Grayscale agrees. For whatever reason, they agree with that sentiment now, and I don't think that was always the case. So let's dive in and explore just a piece of what I think is going on here. And it's kind of a universal human thing. I know some of you think this is going to be CCTV. It's not going to be CCTV. This is not CCTV. We'll do CCTV again, but this will not be CCTV. We're going to go into a little bit of detail about this human thing that I think is impacting the adoption of Cardano's innovations. So, and I think this, you sort of see this throughout startups. They're kind of a microcosm of society in this respect. But when we think about ideas, we've got a few different categories of ideas for this little examination. One category of ideas. Oh, let's see if I can get my stylus going here. I think it'll write for me. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I think that'll write for me now. Sorry about that. Okay. We've got this category of ideas over here. As you guys know, I'm a terrible artist, so apologies in advance, but this is all we got. Okay, we got this category of ideas. These are short-term crowd pleasing ideas. Short-term crowd pleasing ideas. Over here, and yes, I'm doing the super lame thing. This is going to be a Venn diagram. I know many of you hate them for good reason, but it's the only way I know how to explain this. Short-term crowd pleasing ideas. Over here, we've got long-term innovative ideas. And then this last circle is good ideas. So you can tell inherent in the way I drew this is the premise that only some short-term crowd-pleasing ideas are good ideas, and only some long-term innovative ideas are good ideas. So you might read into the word innovative, that label, the idea that it's good, but we might as well have put long-term disruptive ideas. So there are disruptive or innovative, the way I'm using that word, innovative ideas that are not good ideas. They're really innovative, but there's some reason why it's not actually a good idea. Like the world should not adopt that idea. So here's the problem. And I think we see this a lot in crypto. And I think this is exactly what's gone on with Cardano. The mainstream, we're going to draw a stick figure. This is a mainstream person. This is a mainstream person. They are super down with short-term crowd-pleasing ideas. The average person, if the crowd is down with an idea and it's short-term, it's pleasing to the crowd in the short term, they are super down with that idea, usually regardless of whether or not it's a good idea. If it's also a good idea, if you want them to come down here to a good idea that is also short-term crowd pleasing, they are super down. They will run down here. You can also get a normal person. And when I say normal person, I don't just mean a normal person in the mainstream crowd. I also mean a normal person in the mainstream crypto crowd. So a normal person, you can also get them to go to a short-term crowd-pleasing idea that's also a long-term innovative idea. They probably won't even realize it's an innovative idea in the long term. They'll just know that it's short-term crowd-pleasing ideas. In that sense, they may not understand the difference between this area right here. They know this area right here when they see it, but they may also think that this area over here, this yellow area, they may think that that's also part of the green area because it's pleasing to the crowd. It's crowd pleasing in the short term. Here's the problem. If you've got an idea that is innovative over the long term, it's an idea that's going to pay off over the long term, but it's innovative. If it's anything inside of this partial circle, if it's not pleasing to the crowd in the short term, it's very difficult to get this person to go there. He definitely doesn't want to go here. That's very difficult. He's not going there. It's a little bit too big. So we're going to go a little bit smaller brush size there. But it's also, even if it's a good idea, if it lives down in this blue zone down here, if it's one of these ideas, which are innovative ideas that will pay off in the long term, that are also good ideas, if it's down there, it is very, very difficult to get this guy to do this because it's not within the short-term crowd-pleasing ideas. He definitely doesn't want to go over here to an innovative idea with a long-term payoff that's a bad idea, but he or she even does not want to do this. They don't want to go to this blue zone. But that blue zone is where the magic happens. Because everybody over here, this green zone, everybody's already on these ideas. The whole crowd already jumped on this idea because it's pleasing in the short term to the crowd. This is where for the crypto crowd, this is where a lot of the EVM stuff is, because it's pleasing to the crowd in the short term. You take the average crypto person and you say like, hey, do you like, and name, any decentralized EVM DEX? And they're like, great. It's like, do you like Uniswap? They're like, Uniswap's excellent. Great. Right? Because they know that already has the approval of the crowd. That's a short-term crowd-pleasing idea. Use Uniswap. That's a short-term crowd-pleasing idea. Copy the Uniswap protocol and launch it as an EVM product. Great. That will be pleasing to the crowd in the short term. But all this Cardano stuff that's happening over here in this little blue zone, right here, all of that stuff, that is not short-term pleasing to the crowd. That's a long-term payoff. It might be an innovative, good idea. The mainstream is not going there. They're going to wait until any idea that's over in this zone, that idea there, they're going to wait until the whole diagram shifts and this idea is now over here. At a minimum, they're going to wait for that idea to be here, which is a good idea that is going to pay off in the long term because it's innovative, and it's also a short-term crowd-pleasing idea. At a minimum, they're going to wait for position 1. But some people in that crowd will wait until we get to position 2 when it's no longer even a long-term payoff. It's just a short-term crowd-pleasing payoff, that idea. A lot of people will wait for that idea there to go to number 2. But by the time they do, everyone has already jumped on that idea, because there are people like us in the Cardano crowd. We've been over here for years. We've been talking about these long-term innovative ideas. Innovative ideas will have a long-term payoff that were also obviously good ideas, but they were only obvious to us because we're the kind of people who live over here examining long-term ideas to decide if they're innovative, and also, do they live over here or do they live over here? Is it A or B? Which one is it? Is it just a long-term innovative idea that's a bad idea, or a long-term innovative idea that's a good idea? We live over here, so we're just waiting. We're waiting to jump on an idea that's over here. And I think we all did that with Cardano. But most people, they are not this person. They are not person Z. They are person Y. They will only jump on an idea. They will only accept the legitimacy of an idea once it's in this one position best case scenario, but for a lot of them, only once it's in this number 2 position. That's why we're suddenly going to find that all of these characters who previously would not accept Cardano, all of a sudden they're going to be so accepting of Cardano. The second it's pleasing to the crowd in the short term, the second the crowd is like, Cardano's great, all of these people will jump on board. We've talked about this idea in the past. I've actually covered this on the channel a long time ago, but I thought it was even more relevant now, maybe, than it's ever been before. You might have been surprised today to watch 23 brand new Cardano stake pools come into existence and instantly have more than 62 million ADA staked to each of them for a total of 1.5 billion ADA. The names of the pools were only adding to the mystery. You can see these names are kind of, an adjective and then a color or flavor. It looks like it's color, maybe. No, maybe color or flavor. And then the last name of some kind of famous scientist. You can see we've got Da Vinci in there, Darwin, Fermi, Archimedes, Wozniak, Gauss, Galileo, Nobel. So we've got, pretty mysterious. But the mystery, I think, maybe has already been solved for us by pool.pm, which is Smaug Pool. So they looked at this and they discovered a few interesting things. So each wallet the delegation, each wallet is populated by, or in each pool is populated by 2 wallets. Each of those has just under 32 million. We'll get back to that 32 million number in just a second. Some of you are already guessing exactly where this is going based on that number. So the metadata for these pools is hosted on a domain called bison.run. And Smaug Pool has already discovered the strongest clue for now is that the pool's metadata are hosted on the same bison.run domain, also used by bisontrails.co, Bison Pool, which is now part of Coinbase and whose homepage points to this. Bison Trails is now part of Coinbase Cloud. So I think based on this, we can assume that this is actually Coinbase. Here's the interesting part. Here's another piece of that website. So here's the interesting part. The 32 million might indicate that Coinbase is expecting K to go to 750, the stake pool parameter K to go to 750 soon, which would push the saturation level of pools down to 32 million. We know that because each of these pools has 2 delegators, 2 wallets delegating to it, and they're each under 32. That would be efficient if you're expecting that soon stake pools will go down to 32 million. Then you wouldn't have to split each of your wallets. If they just made a 62 million ADA wallet and delegated each one, it probably would have been simpler to set up in the beginning. But maybe they're doing it this way because they're expecting K to go to 750 soon, so they can just move one of the wallets out and have a perfect 32 million ADA wallet in each of those stake pools. I want to thank Monkey ADA Stake Pool for pointing this out. I always like it when we get some Djed news. Here's some Djed news. It's short. Djed testnet incoming. Obligatory space shuttle launch GIF. Yes, I'm going for GIF. I can't understand the GIF pronunciation. If you've been dying to learn about the inner workings of pipelining, or as it's called in this article, diffusion pipelining, this is the article for you. I love it when they add a new term to a label we're familiar with. They're like, by the way, it's not just pipelining, it's diffusion pipelining. This article has diagrams, it has symbols, it has all kinds of technical stuff. There are these things that are like near formulas in it. There we go. If you want to know all the details about they're actually saying that I think the change in P is 5 seconds there. But if you want to know all of the intricate details about diffusion pipeline, this is the article for you. We won't cover it here because it's already been kind of a long video. I'll leave it for you to read this if you're interested. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.